Hey everyone. Okay, so I did an activity for school, well, an experience for school called CAS. It stands for Creativity, Activity, and Service. We have to do different experiences for each of the letters, and so this is for creativity. And so I wanted to do activities that helped challenge and developed my creative thinking skills, as well as some critical thinking skills, because they tend to go hand in hand. So I'm going to review the things that I did and kind of just give my thoughts on them, what I would suggest for other people. So this is ranked mostly based on creative skills since that was the main goal of these activities, but I did take into account critical thinking skills because, again, they were also involved. So the first thing I did was an escape room. 5 out of 5. I didn't say it, but ranking these out of 5. So 5 out of 5, best activity that I did. It really helped with both creative and critical thinking skills and just really kind of push you out of your comfort zone, put anyone out of their comfort zone. Pretty much as advertised with escape rooms, you really had to put a lot of work into figuring out the clues, figuring out what even was a clue, what was a tool, what was just decoration. So yeah, 5 out of 5. I thought this was an amazing activity for both. The next thing I did was a board game called Catan. So this I would rank a 3. There were various strategies for winning that you could think of. It was very creative with how you got these because they were by winning, you win by getting a certain amount of points, but there are multiple different ways to get points, and you can get them in any kind of combination through the different methods. But I only ranked it a 3 because it did get repetitive because there are only so many strategies played a dozen or so times and it gets boring. There is an expansion packs for Catan. My family bought Seafarers, so that's on different the expansion pack that I also played with. I would say Seafarers specifically of Catan, or the expansion pack, was a 4 out of 5 for ranking. It had a way more variations than the original Catan, so there were a lot of more ways to win. It took much longer to get bored, and there were way more ways to set up the game board, so it was more challenging, more fun. It also, because it changed the board and added new elements to the game, challenged your previous winning strategies. I won like the original version of Catan like once or twice when I played with my family. When we played Seafarers, I won the first time we played any new board setup, because I was better at changing my thinking strategy and adapting quickly to the new setting of the game. So I think it's good if you want to focus on that specifically to buy Catan, get used to that, and then buy the expansion packs to practice kind of adapting to the new situations. But again, like escape rooms also do very well with that. So I would always suggest escape rooms first if you want to work on creative or critical thinking skills. So the next thing I did was puzzles. That was the worst for creative thinking. There still is a bit of creativity involved, trying to mentally picture what the puzzle's supposed to look like at the end, kind of figuring out how the pieces fit together, because it's never exactly like it is in the picture. And if it is, it doesn't come together usually the way you think it's going to be. But it's still a 1. It was more critical thinking than it was creative thinking. It's a fun pastime, but I wouldn't say it helps develop any skills. Another game that I played was Minute Mysteries. It was on the go card game. It's really quick, literally a minute to figure these out. I ranked this at a 2. It was really basic, and after a couple of cards, it got really simple. At first it was like, oh, that's not what I expected the answer to be. Like there was one where it's person was naked and crying and then it was a celebration, a happy moment. It's what's the person? The answer was a baby. It's not what you expected. Presented it granted it's crime cards, and then it wasn't. So again, a nice thing to challenge your thinking, but really after 5 minutes it gets boring. So only a 2. Another game I played was Chameleon. I ranked this at a 3. Personally, I thought the entire premise of the game was too difficult. I personally didn't enjoy it. You're given a word. Everyone knows the word except for one person. They're the chameleon. And then you have to say a word that connects to the word that everyone but the chameleon knows. And then you figure out who the chameleon is based off of that. I didn't like it in either position because it was hard to figure out one word that connected to just the word that everyone knew. It was just like too limiting for me. I didn't find it very fun to play very quickly. It was just too difficult. I didn't like it, but it was good at like challenging creative skills when you knew what the word was and had to figure out another word to go with it. It was more creative skills involved in that because you were just your main focus was to make sure that people knew your word, not to figure out what the word was. But for the chameleon, I would say critical thinking skills were more involved, trying to eliminate options and narrow down your choices and then kind of figuring out which one was the best. So it was a good activity, I just didn't like it. So 3. There's a very similar game I played called Spyfall. I ranked this at a 4. It wasn't quite as good as Escape Rooms, but I'd say definitely very close second. It's the only 4 I have on the list. So Spyfall, everyone is given a location you're at except for the spy, and you ask each other questions to try and figure out who the spy is, and then the spy has to figure out what the location is. It's very similar to Chameleon, but the specific way you find the imposter is different, and so I found this was much easier, and it was much better at developing creative thinking skills, because coming up with questions added a whole nother level of creativity. Some of the questions were really fun. They could get really personal questions. They could be generic questions. They like stereotyping locations. I thought it was so much fun. There were limited locations, but we still managed to play for hours and have a lot of fun with it. If you ever run out of locations, you can just write down a list and like replace them, which another level of creativity if you want to keep playing the game, but you get bored with the locations. So yeah, and there was still the critical thinking aspect of like, okay, trying to figure out what fits, what doesn't fit, that kind of logical thinking. But still, like, again, escape rooms were a little better because it was more like situationally based and more like applicable, easier to apply to real life, like if we were like kidnapped or something, which was like part of why I did these activities, was to help my like on the spot creative thinking skills. But again, I loved Spyfall. That was my second favorite of all these activities. The last activity that I did was the board game Clue. I ranked this at a 2. It was really just critical thinking based. The way my family plays it, because we're very competitive and all very good at creative and critical thinking skills. Well, we're all very good at critical thinking skills, so we add more creativity to the game with like figuring out new ways to throw people off. But even then you have to like, it's really just critical thinking. It's a fun game. It does get like, it's Clue. I'd say 2. It's not the worst thing you could do, but it's not the best by far. It's just too critical thinking based, and these are supposed to be creativity thinking skills. So those are all the things. And a little note at the end, kind of like a conclusion suggestion, if you do any of these, I would say for the escape rooms, the Catan board game and the Seafarers expansion, as well as playing Clue, do these activities, since they are group activities, with people at similar creative and critical thinking levels as you. It avoids like you getting frustrated, like especially in escape rooms, when someone just can't get past something that you know that you could have figured out, or like getting frustrated, again, mostly with escape rooms, because you can't escape the room because someone's just not figuring it out. Escape rooms are different, but have different difficulties, like wanting to do a difficult room, but one of the people in the room was really only capable of doing a medium room. Like, avoiding situations like that, I'd say, is really important for getting the most out of the activity. Also doing it with people at similar intelligence levels to you makes sure that you're kind of challenging to each other, more with like Clue and Catan. When I play games like this with my friends, usually I do kind of get things faster, but when I play with my family, again, like genetics, they're like all really smart, so it's harder for me and I'm more challenged with it. But also, if you play with people who have much higher like creative or critical thinking skills than you, then you're constantly feeling behind, and it's very difficult. It's like with Catan, if you play with I played with my family who had the game much longer than I have and had like just way more experience than I did. So it was very difficult for me to enjoy the game at the beginning because I was always losing, and it was just difficult for me to like. I always felt stupid compared to them, so I wouldn't suggest doing activities with people who you know are much more familiar at using these skills than you are, because it will be frustrating. You're not going to want to continue it, and you're not going to get much out of it other than that frustration. So like those activities, escape rooms, Catan, and Clue, I'd say you get the most out of it when you play those games or do those things with people that are kind of at the same place you are. With the other activities, I wouldn't say as much. They're less like that. Those activities can be done with kind of like anyone. They're more just for fun, less serious types of things, less competitive, I would say. So it's not so much pressure of like doing it right or doing it wrong. But yeah, I mean, like all in all, conclusion, like escape rooms are the best for like developing these creative and critical thinking skills, I would say. Again, as advertised, 100% suggest them. They're also really fun if you're into that type of thing. And then the game is Spyfall. It's just, you can look it up. It's a thing you do on your phone. It's really fun, it's really easy, and it also super helps with especially creative skills. Coming up with those questions, and it is so much fun. You really can do it for hours. Yeah. So that's pretty much it. I hope you guys, if you are watching this, got something out of it. If not, yeah, my cast is done. Bye!